Let us start with the pranam mantra. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukampadhrita Vigraham Vai Ishavataram Parameshamidhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirsha Namah. Namaste everyone. Welcome to our study group, online study group on chapter 13. Let me share the screen. Okay, so you should be able to see chapter 13 on your computer.
Yeah.
And we had an introduction last Thursday about how I propose that we will take up the study of the Bhagavad Gita to assimilate the ideas therein. At the end of the study of this particular chapter, we should have been able to identify some principal ideas that are discussed here, have developed some deep understanding, and then taken it to the next level and say how we are going to apply them. How do we assimilate those ideas so that they become part and parcel of our philosophy of life, of how our perspective to life, how we see everything, ourselves, the world out there, how we are relating to the world. That is what this is the aim of this study. Today, we propose that we do a overview so that we just go through all the verses once so that we have an overall idea what's the scope and span of this particular chapters. Then we will come back to each of those verses and say, look in detail and say, okay, how does it fit in? If we just dive in right now into each verse, then in your mind, you will not have the bigger picture. Imagine the mind to be a canvas where you're trying to capture all these ideas. And if you just start in one corner, you do not know what's the rest of the picture like. So without further ado, let us dive into it. We had gone through all this Bloom's taxonomy in detail. I hope you had some time to study that. And today we go through the verses. We'll just go through the English verse. So it's a conversation of question and answer. And in this particular chapter, the chapter is called, by the way, is called chapter 13, Ch13 Vibhaga Yoga. Kshetra means the field, Kshetrajna means the knower of the field, Vibhaga means how you separate, how you discriminate between the two. And this is the subject matter of this particular chapter. So, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, the Lord says, O Arjuna, this body is referred to as the field. Those who are versed in this call him who is conscious of it as the knower of the field. So there is the body, like you might see a dead body there, but there is in a live person, somebody who is the living entity, who is operating the body, who is knowing what's happening, who is controlling it. That conscious entity is called the Kshetrajna. So that's the basic introduction, that there are two entities. And what we are going to do by the end of this chapter, the goal of this chapter is to have a very clear idea how they are different. And of course, we are all identified with this body, how we are going to separate the two. So Sri Ramakrishna gives the example of a green coconut. And when the green coconut is green, then the flesh of the coconut is really sticking to the shell. But when the same coconut ripens, then the copra, this fleshy part becomes separated, and you shake the coconut, you can hear the rattling sound of it. Likewise, the Jivatma is separated from this body-mind complex. He gave the example, such an example of the knower of the truth. And Arjuna, understand me to be the knower of the field in all the fields. So Sri Krishna is now telling, look, I'm very much in there as the real knower of the field. That means in the entity that we all are experiencing ourselves as a body and a knower of the body, which I call I, and I'm knowing in. Really, this I doesn't have its own independent entity, or it's not even a product of the body-mind complex, unlike most of the Western scientists think that consciousness is a product of the brain activity. No, the consciousness or I consciousness, aham bhava, which we've been reading in the Kashmiri Shaivism, that really has its origin not from the gross material entity called the body, but from a spiritual entity, which is the Paramatman. So this Jivatman is really a reflection of the Paramatman. And so in the first verse, there are two entities, but in the second verse, he says, really, I dwell as the inner controller, as the Antaratma. In chapter 15, Shri Krishna will says that an amsha, a part of the Supreme Paramatman, resides in every jiva as the Jivatman. So understand me. Here it means the capital, means the Atman when you see a capital N or capital I. The knower of the field. In my opinion, that is knowledge which is the knowledge of the field and knower of the field. So true knowledge, and not so much information that we have, about the world perceived through our senses or ideas. Shri Krishna says the real knowledge is the knowledge which is able to separate or differentiate between the knower of the field and the field itself. And that becomes a subject matter. How do we, subject matter of this chapter 13, Ch13 Vibhaga Yoga. How do we separate the knower from the known? The body is known, the I consciousness is the knower. Somehow it has become entangled, and the qualities of the body are now superimposed on the knower. For example, if the body is becoming old, then you say, I am old. This is my 50th birthday. Now there is a 50th birthday of the body. Or when you say, I am happy, actually the happiness comes not from the body or something you have eaten or seen. It is a quality of the Atman. Now it is superimposed on the body. So you say, I am happy. So in this way, this mutual superimposition. Mutual means one another. One transfers some qualities from the body to the Jivatman, and the Jivatman's qualities are transferred to the body. And this mixture is what is creating all this entanglement. And that is the cause of our repeated birth in this body. How do we separate that? By the time we leave this world, that the Jivatman is totally separate from the body-mind complex. That is the goal. Okay, so that is set up there. And then Sri Krishna says, okay, what is his plan of this chapter teaching here? So he is laying it out. Hear from me in brief, not in great detail, about all that as to what are the subject matter, what this field is. Okay, we'll be giving the description. How is it? What are its changes? And from where does it arise? And what effect and who he is and what his powers are. So regarding both this body, Kshetra and Kshetrajna, is going to go into detail, not a very big detail, but he says briefly, Samasena. Okay, having given the content of the chapter, he now begins to go a little bit more. Why should somebody be interested in this? So now only we'll say the end result of this chapter. By the end of the chapter, you should be able to learn this, and this is how this knowledge will be useful to you. So Sri Krishna is trying to generate a little bit more interest in the students, saying, praises the true nature of the field and the knower of the field which is in it. So you highlight it and give some incentive for the student to go into the detail. So he says, this knowledge has been sung in various ways by the rishis. Rishis are called the mantra drastas. They developed that power of subtle perception. That means not only seeing the world through the senses, but purifying the mind. Shukshma darshi, that word will come a little later on. And they were able to separate these two entities, body and the knower of the body, the consciousness and the matter, so to say. And it has been separately discussed in various Vedic texts where these teachings are recorded. And also, in a very rational and convincing way, these have been expressed in this scripture called the Brahma Sutras. Brahma Sutras is a special text where this is in a very logical, rational way explained. So this subject matter, what is Krishna is proposing to teach, he says this is not the first time. I'm not the original author. I'm just reinstating and summarizing it for you. But you'll find this has been taught in so many ways by the rishis. It has been recorded in the Vedas. Vedas are the recordings of the various realizations of not any one particular rishi, but like so many, all of them have again and again experimented with this spiritual seeking and have come to some realization, and they have shared that, and that's what the Vedas are, the sum total of spiritual truths. And of course, in a very rational way, it has been put in the Brahma Sutras. So he doesn't claim that it's a special knowledge he's given to. Now he dives deep into it and he says, okay, the 5 basic elements. Mahabhutani. What are they? Shiti, Aptej, Marutya. Shiti is earth, Apa, water, Tej is fire, Marut is air, Vyom is space. In the Sankhya philosophy, unlike the periodic table of science, where so many elements have been set up there in the periodic table that we study, here they said they're summarized in 5 elements. And there will be 5 corresponding senses, each one sort of to detect one of those elements. So these 5 elements: egotism, I sense. Everyone has got an I sense. I know, I enjoy. That is present in everyone. We all experience it. Maybe we are not able to define it, but definitely it is there. The intellect. Intellect is the buddhi, the power of discrimination, which is also the source of that egotism. And the unmanifest, prakriti, made out of the 3 gunas. The 10 organs plus the mind. Indriyani dasa ekam cha. Dasa ekam, 10 plus 1. So what are these 10 organs? 5 are the organs of action, karmendriyanis, hands, feet, mouth, organ of excretion and regeneration. And 5 are the organs, sense of jnanendriyas, which are the eyes and the nose and the ears and skin and tongue. So these are the 5 plus 5, 10. Mind is the 11th one. So these are the is a list of what has been enumerated so far. 5 basic elements, panchamo bhutas, 5 organs of the senses, panch jnanendriyas, 5 organs of action, panch karmendriyas, the mind, egotism, intellect, and the unmanifest, which is the prakriti. Right? So he says, what was the sentence there? The 5 basic elements, egotism, intellect, and the unmanifest organ, unmanifest itself, the 10 organs, the mind, and the 5 objects of the senses. Then he goes and says that there are other qualities related to this body-mind complex. There is a school of philosophy, philosophers called Vaisheshikas. They said the Atman, they talk about the attributes or the qualities of the Atman to be the reality, the supreme. So Sri Krishna includes them and he says, Ichha, Dvesha, Sukham, Dukkham, Sanghata, Chetana, Dhriti, Etat Ch13 Samasena, Savikaram Samudahitra. So desire, Ichha, Dvesha, repulsion, Sukham, happiness, Dukkham, sorrow, Sanghata means an aggregate of the body-mind complex. Chetana means sentience, sentient means that what makes something conscious. Fortitude, dhriti. These all together that have been listed so far. This is the field, kshetra. Together with this modification has been spoken of as the field. The reason why it has been given the word field is like in the field you plant the seeds. And as you sow, so you shall reap. So we come and do our karma. Akarmas have the results, and that's a result. You have another season of harvesting in the next life. So this is the Kshetra, the field. Most of us have a very strong idea that we are the field. We are the body, we are born, we are growing old, we are healthy, or we are becoming old or sick. This is my birthday, and all those type of things, qualities are there. Qualities also altogether, apart from that, these changes that are happening in the body-mind field, desire, repulsion, happiness, sorrow, and all those things. This is where we have got the Jivatma, the Kshetrajna has got himself really muddled up, and he thinks these are him or it. So the qualities of the knower of the field will be narrated in basic 12. So Kshetrajna will be told little later on. But for the present, the Lord enjoins a group of disciplines which will lead to the one to the knowledge of the field. So he takes the opportunity and says, hey, look, I have told you what is the Kshetra. Later on, I'll tell you about the Kshetrajna in verse 12. But right now, when we are here, I'll tell you some of these what you call qualities or sadhanas to be cultivated, which he classifies them as jnana, which will lead to the knowledge of the Kshetrajna or the awareness of the Kshetrajna. So he takes that list, and here I will just go through the list, saying basically you will understand that this is, if I want to have that awareness of myself as the Atman, Kshetrajna means the Atman here, then these are the qualities that I should cultivate in my thought, word, and deed in every day. What are they? Humility, modesty, non-violence, ahimsa, forbearance. Forbearance means you have to put up with certain things. Don't try to change the world, but saha, saha, saha. Sahanam sarva dukkhanam apratikara purvakam. For Vedanta, a spiritual seeker, this is one of the qualities. Titiksha, forbear. If you just react to anything and everything, then that activity or whatever is from outside hijacks the mind. But if you develop capacity to not allow that object to take your peace of mind or make you react, that's a wonderful way to maintain your own peace of mind. For example, if somebody is teasing you or something like that, well, if you react to it, then you're caught. But if you just ignore that or just hold your own in an internal peace, then that is not able to affect you. Sincerity. Without sincerity, nothing is achieved. Service to a spiritual teacher. So when one goes to a spiritual teacher and asks for knowledge, of course, you cannot pay for spiritual knowledge just like you pay in a university $20,000 per year or something like that. So the disciples, to show that they are open and receptive to it in the olden days, they would offer some service. Not that the teacher requires many things. Basically, they might fetch some water and go and collect some wood from the forest for the puja and havan and this and that. Simply something like that. But basically, it is more the attitude of the student that I'm here to receive in return in my own humble way. If I can be of some service, that is my privilege. Purity in thought, word, and deed. This is a very important sadhana that all of us will need to do. Steadiness. You can't do something today and then give it up tomorrow and say, hey, nothing is happening. I mean, I'm meditating 5 minutes and once in a while. No, tremendous steadiness is necessary. And control of body and the organs. You can't just let your senses dictate and dissipate all the energy that is generated through sadhana and that is becoming available to us from the higher source. We have to learn how to arrest that outflow of that energy, and that's where the control of the body and the organs are there. So these are, we'll come back to them and look in more detail. Why Shri Krishna is making, prescribing these qualities, and not just now and then you'll have to check, yourself, how much is my humility, my modesty, non-violence, and all those things are there. This is like the list of spiritual practices in your everyday life when you're out there. Then non-attachment with regard to objects of the senses. So whenever you have a sense experience, eat something and you like it, then you want to have it again, or let's go to the same restaurant again type of thing. That type of attachment happens. So one has to make sure that one does not get attached, because then those senses or those objects exercise a certain degree of control on the mind, and the mind then is drawn out to that particular object. We want to be centered in the Atman and go inwards. So, and also the absence of egotism, anahankara, reflecting on the evil inherent in birth, death, old age, disease, and death. Janma, mrityu, jara, vyadhi, dukkha, doshanu, darshanam. Janma, birth, mrityu, death, old age, jara, vyadhi, disease, and janma, mrityu, jara, vyadhi, dukkha. There should be suffering here, repeat. Yeah, dukkha, dos, anudarshanam. So, where did this come from? So, janma, mrityu, jara, vyadhi, dukkha, dos, anudarshanam. Absence of non-attachment to all these things. So, this requires dukkha, dos, seeing that there is an inherent defect in these things. That requires a sort of a discriminative mind, a mind that is able to see the end result of all this engagement in this cycle of birth and death. So these, okay, these are the other qualities that have to be practiced. And then anasakti ranabhisvanga putra dara grihadisu nityam cha samachittattvam ishta anishta papattisu. So these are the additionals. You see a whole list of things are there as a practice. Non-attachment and absence of fondness regarding son, wife, and home. That means these are your relationships are there. They happen to be part of your family. You are born in them, or they are born in your family. Don't have, serve them, do your duty to them, but do not be attached to them. Does that mean that you have to be indifferent, not take care of their food, clothing, shelter, and those? No, non-attachment doesn't mean that type of hard-heartedness and coldness and forsaking your responsibility to those things. It means don't be attached to them, but you can still love them and serve them by seeing the divine, the Atman inside them. Actually, that is the real source of the attraction. We will discuss this in more detail, because you need to practice this, and you say, hey, don't misunderstand that, and you're neglecting your duties to your family members. But we can have another more enlightened approach and perspective to the whole relationship to the people that are in our family. When we discriminate that really what is attractive in all of them is not the person themselves, but the divine, the presence of the divine in themselves. And to understand it very easily, look, if somebody is alive, you talk to them, you love them, you give them a hug and all those things. But when the Atman departs from the body, then you don't do those things anymore. So if it was the body, then you should still be able to do. No, really, from this we understand that what was the object of attraction in that person was not the body, but the presence of the consciousness that was involved. And when that consciousness has departed, I don't find that particular body attractive anymore. So if the discrimination is there, then you'd be able to separate the two. What did you separate? Kshetra and Kshetrajna. Actually, the Kshetrajna is the source of all attraction. But in ignorance, we think that particular physical person's appearance is what is the source of attraction there. So when there's discrimination, vibhaga, when you're able to discriminate between the two, then you'd be able to repurpose or redirect that attraction to the real source. In fact, you have not become indifferent, but you can really go to the source of that person and say, there is the divine presence. inside him. That is the most beautiful being. And that light of consciousness, that internal spiritual beauty is shining through that particular person, manifesting in those nice words, so how they behave to me, sharing that love and affection. It is not that body, it's not a property of that body, it is actually the property of that consciousness, Ch13, that is there. And once you do that, you'll find that your attachment to the physical body drops off, but now it is re-established in its proper place in the consciousness. So this is the power of knowledge. In ignorance, we don't have this discrimination, and then we get caught. When knowledge comes, we are able to discriminate in this way and hold on to the spiritual truth. Of course, because of the conditioning of many lifetimes, and this lifetime we are sort of designed to function in one way. Again and again, you'll fall back to the old conditioned mind's way of functioning. That's where, if you drive these ideas deep in your mind and develop that alertness, discrimination, then you'd be able to constantly keep that sort of discrimination and have the right spiritual perspective of the individual or people that we are dealing with. So, non-attachment and absence of fondness to putra, dara, grihadisu, house, wife, children, etc., anything material, and constant equanimity of mind with regard to the attainment of the desirable and the undesirable. Samatvam, samachittatvam, samachitta. Chitta means mind, sama means equanimity. Doesn't get disturbed too much, and not let the mind get too much swinging and the pendulum to be affected by success and failure and all those things. Because the world of duality is like that. Life and death, success and failure, light and darkness, health and disease. This is how the world makes us swing around. And if you sit on that pendulum, you swing with it. But there is a place on the pendulum that does not swing, which is where the string is tied to the top, wherever it is hanging from. So the whole world moves in and out, but those who are anchored in the Atman, in the Ch13 state, they can see all the changes happening in the Kshetra, because the Kshetra is part of this creation and is constant change, part of the Jagat. Jagat means that which is constantly changing. So he'll see that change happening around him all the time, but his locus, location, anchor, is not on the changeful world, Kshetra, but on the Ch13. That is the idea. Okay, we'll come back to this in more detail later. But so verse 10 says, an unswavering devotion to me. Me doesn't mean Sri Krishna, who was born as the son of Vasudeva. Here it means the inner self, the Atman. Unswavering devotion. Constant, whatever you devoted to that the mind constantly goes. Not little bit here, most of the time is devotion to the world, to money, job, and all these things. That constant seeking and trying to realize that truth, that is the discipline. Unswavering devotion to me with single-minded concentration. Okay, and then inclination to repair to a solitary place. Vivikta desha sevitvam, going into a quiet place. Sri Ramakrishna mentions this very quite frequently in the gospel, because the world outside us is so powerful that it constantly drags us out. Now and then, whenever you get some time, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, to go in a quiet place and reflect, get the zoom out of this life, out of today, this week, this month, this year, and look at the whole journey of this whole life and many lifetimes. And as a traveler, as a jiva, as a Ch13, I've been taking on different bodies, and then as the bodies become old and unfit, I discard them and I take the next one. So what is the whole purpose? What's the plan? And that requires you to now withdraw. If you do not, then we just dragged on and small things become very big and engulf us. Lack of delight in a crowd of people. Arati jana samsadi. Jana samsadi means a crowd of people. Rati means you enjoy. Arati means you don't enjoy anymore. All these parties are useless. I've been going there so many times. People talk about the same thing, type of thing. You've had enough of that experience. It's waste of time. Nothing enlightening happens in this and that. And it just, I can do better. I can enjoy my own spiritual company or company of some book or some satsang. So when people develop that distaste, that is also a spiritual practice to be done. Yeah. So when people invite you, hey, come to a party, then you have to find some way to get across to them that you are not going to be present. Okay. So then steadfastness in knowledge of the Supreme Spirit, Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam. So how do we maintain that? Study of the scriptures, satsang, cultivating discrimination, contemplation on the goal of the knowledge of the reality. So the purpose of life is Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam. The purpose of life is to realize God, to realize my own spiritual self, to realize I'm really the Kshetrajna and not mixed up with this Kshetra. All this single-minded focus, these are the disciplines to be practiced. These are all classified in the sadhana part of it called knowledge. Anything other than that, where one's mind is entangled with the other outside world and everything, that is called ajnana, ignorance, spiritual ignorance. So from this discussion so far, if you look at reflect on your own life and say in the waking state when I'm engaging with this world, how much of my mind is in the field of knowledge and how much is in the ignorance. And there's a work to be done in all of us case. And that is the sadhana part of it. Okay, now we come to verse 12, where he is going to talk about the knower of the field. I shall speak of that which is to be known. Okay, so this is the purpose of life. All experiences are directed for this one singular goal. Many, many lifetimes. We are constantly should be alert to that. This is the purpose why you have come. And what is the result? By realizing which one attains immortality. Now, this is the reward there. There is something inside us, which is the Kshetrajna, the Atman. And becoming identified with it, I become immortal. Yad jnatva amritam ashnute, knowing which amritam, the immortality, I attain. So this is a very, very powerful reward. That is why we are engaging in this particular, or Sri Krishna is inviting Arjuna to engage in this process of discriminating between the field and the knower of the field, because the real immortality and the bliss, everything is really not in the field, but in the knower of the field. So he's making it very clear here in verse 12. The Supreme Brahman is without any beginning. It is neither being or not being. So this is the ultimate goal that is being sought, because the Kshetrajna is really part of the Supreme Being, Brahman. So in verse 13, he says, and he now tells a little bit about that Kshetrajna. What is that Kshetrajna, the knower of the field? That noble, where is it? Okay, he is all pervading everywhere. He is transcendental as the pure consciousness. At the same time, it is also immanent in all things that are there. Nothing can exist without that existence. But however, the names and form of these various things have covered the existence. Nonetheless, without the existence as the background, nothing can even exist. So, in the forms and names and forms, and in through, we should try to see the presence of that Kshetrajna. Just like the body and all these things are the products, but inside is the cause. So that noble which has hands and feet everywhere, not only your hands and feet, but all beings, not only human beings, all living beings, which has eyes, heads, and mouth everywhere. Through all eyes it sees, through all heads it thinks, through all mouths it eats. So it should not only eat through the mouth that which you call your own body, it feeds through all them, which has ears everywhere, exists in creatures by pervading them all. So it is that universal oneness behind all the variety of beings in this whole creation. That is the ocean behind all the waves. No, we are normally focused only on the different waves and look at those qualities, male, female, black, white, brown, this and that. But very few are there who say, oh, we are only humans, but behind the humans is the being. And that being is the reality. The human appears and disappears, so to say. So likewise in all forms. So this is where we have to see him all the time, not only inside your own body. Of course, it's there during your meditation. You close your eyes and try to connect with the divine presence. But when you open your eyes and engage yourself in various works, activities, and everything, then you are not away from this reality. The reality is very much present there. That's why Swami Vivekananda says, do not seek him, see him. He's right in front of you, wearing all these forms, coming to you in these forms as your relatives and friends and patients and doctors and customers, everything is there right in front of you. So how do you know, how do you recognize his presence there? Oh, look at this, shining through the functions of the organs. So the organs act, means this eyes. The eyes don't see. A dead man's eyes, perfect eyes, they don't see. It is only when he wakes up and the consciousness is behind it, then the eyes are able to see. So sarve indriya gunabhasam. Yet it is not controlled and contained by the organs. That means the organs do not limit him. It operates the organs, but the organs don't define it. Therefore, devoid of all organs also. That means it exists even if there are no organs. Like you take the body and remove the body, the Jivatman still exists as the Kshatrajna, as the immortal being. Unattached and verily the supporter of all things. It is totally unattached to the body, but it supports and operates it from within, without any gunas, and yet the paseva of the gunas. So that means the reality of the Kshatrajna is that soul, or the consciousness inside us, that makes all the functions of the body-mind complex happen, yet it is not defined by any of those things. It has its own independent existence. So here in these verses, he's talking about the Kshatrajna. Where is it? You say, okay, is it some abstract thing that we die and we get out of the body and at that time we are going to experience it? Or can we experience it now? And says, of course, we are experiencing it all the time, but just got mixed up. Now, if you separate the Kshetra separately, separate from the Kshatrajna, then you see the operations of the Kshatrajna in all your activities, in your thoughts, word, deeds, operations of the mind, of the intellect, of the 5 gross organs of action, 5 organs of knowledge, karmendriyas and jnanendriyas is there. So we are trying to discern and decipher that there is something or disentangle this complex set there. Then bahirantascha bhutanam, it's existing outside and inside of all beings, moving as well as not moving. It is incomprehensible due to its subtleness. Sukshmatvat avijnayam. Sukshma means subtle, very subtle. That's why the gross senses are not able to capture it. The gross mind is not able to capture it. But it's like, look at something through your naked eye, you'll see something. But when you look through a high-powered microscope, you see something else. It is there all the time. It's just you require a very powerful microscope to see those things. So the gross sense organs just see the external body. But when the subtle perception develops through sadhana, that's where the japa and meditation develops that particular capacity, then we are able to penetrate through these layers of names and forms and behold that subtle being, the subtle energies which belong to the Kshatrajna, the Atman. So it is present, all pervading. That means it's not defined by the body. That's only is inside the body. It is like space, you throw out a bubble, so bubble, a part of that space is captured within the framework, boundaries, and the rest is out there. But that little bubble is not defining that this is my space and the rest is outside me type of thing. it just is a boundary. That boundary disappears, the space was unaffected, whether the bubble exists or does not exist. Likewise, the Atman is the infinite ocean of consciousness, and waves appear, which gives a name and form. The waves disappear, the ocean still remains. It doesn't add anything to the ocean, it doesn't remove anything to the ocean. That type of experience that I am the unchangeable being, the ocean, not to do anything with whether this body mind wave appears or disappears, and abide in that awareness, as compared to this identification with the appearance of a body and say, I am born and it's moving, so I'm moving, and at some point it will disappear, so I'm dead. That is ignorance. This idea of identifying with one little wave of this body-mind complex is what is called ignorance. Really, we all are that ocean, not part of the ocean, the whole of the ocean. That experience which a yogi has when he is able to separate or disconnect himself from the wave identity and merge himself into that ocean identity, suddenly feels that I am not this little miserable little wave being tossed up and down on the surface of the ocean, but I am this vast mass of water, so deep, so profound, that it is beyond even any words to explain. That limitlessness, that vastness, but the realized soul tries to express when they say, I am Aham Brahmasmi, I am the Brahman. Brahman means the vast, the limitless. But that's all he can say. So it exists outside, inside of all beings, moving as well as non-moving. It is incomprehensible due to its subtleness. So also it is far away and yet very near. So sometimes in ignorance, we think God is far away, or some Atman is something, some being there we'll encounter when we die and go to Vaikuntha and all that. That is a kindergarten type of understanding, an ignorant one. Sri Ramakrishna says, in ignorance, man thinks God is far away. When knowledge comes, then he says God is inside, within himself, as Antaryami, the Ch13, as the consciousness. And when that knowledge matures, then he says, I'm in everything. That is called the Vijnana state of things, that I'm present in all things, existing outside and inside, moving as well as non-moving. It's all that qualities are there. So here from verse 12, these qualities of the Ch13 is being described in great details. So far, there was a section where we talked about the Kshetra, the field, all the qualities and all those things. Then he talked about so many spiritual disciplines, what he classified as knowledge, which will lead to the knowledge of the Kshetrajna. And then from verse 12 onwards, he has been talking about the Kshetrajna. So, and that noble, though undivided, appears to be existing as divided in all beings. Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktam iva cha sthitam. Really it is undivided, but it appears to be divided. For example, a little child is playing with soap bubbles. He throws out all these soap bubbles, and there are so many soap bubbles. Each one is bound by the boundary of that soap, as if that is the space that is contained inside. And say, hey, this is my space. That bubble says, I am this space. But when you bust, the bubbles get busted, then what happens? The same undivided space was there. It appears to have been divided by the boundaries of things, but really boundaries don't even touch it. It's not affected by it in any way. So, though undivided appears to be existing as divided in all beings. So some part is called human being, plant, animal, gods, this and that, but really the supreme being is undivided. And it is the sustainer of all beings, as also the devourer and the originator. So all the waves rise out of the ocean, is held together by the ocean, and to the ocean they all will return. So these names and forms, all this Kshetra, the fields that are there, whether it's a little virus or bacteria or plant or animal or gods, they all appear in the ocean of Brahman. They are held by that and they return to that. And all that coming and going doesn't add anything or take anything to it. So then a little bit more is told. That is the light even of the lights. Jyoti Sham Apita Jyoti. So we see this light in front of us, and light of the lamp, or light of the sun, light of the moon, light of the mind, through which we see when all the other lights are not there, like you see your dream. Okay, this is a light of consciousness, the ultimate light which illumines everything, light of consciousness. Jyotisham apita jyoti. Tamasa varamuchate. It is beyond all darkness. Tamasoma jyotirgamaya. That is the supreme state, the state of consciousness. It is knowledge, the noble and the known. It exists especially in the hearts of all beings. Jnanam, Jnayam, Jnanagamyam. So it divides, though it is one, it differentiates itself into three. Jnana, that means knowledge. Jnayam, to be known. And Jnanagamyam is Jnanagamyam is to be the known, Jnayam is the noble. So these experiences are there. We are the knower, there's something known, in between is the knowledge. And where does it exist? Where do we find it? Where are we going to look for it? Hrudaya sarvasya vishtitam. It resides, or its special manifestation is in the hearts of all beings. Not like we talked about the physical heart, but the core of one's own being, which is the spiritual consciousness in all of us. So in so many verses, from 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, Shri Krishna has been talking about the qualities of the Kshetrajna. So here he comes, iti Kshetram tatha jnanam jnayam choktam samasata. Thus has been spoken in very brief the field, Kshetram, also the knowledge, jnanam, and the noble, Kshetrajna. By understanding this, probably the word understanding is not the word right translation, by realizing this, etad vijnaya, my devotee becomes qualified for my state. That means that state of the Kshetrajna, the Paramatman Purushottam. So that is the whole idea that Sri Krishna is trying to tell his friend Arjuna. Look, I'll tell you a secret. There are two entities in here. One is the Kshetra, the body, and all those things defined. But there is something different from that. That is the Kshetrajna, and he's explained this here. And he's also told him the means by which one is able to separate the Kshetra from the Kshatrajna. And what is the result? If one pursues this attainment of this knowledge in the journey of life for many lifetimes, such a person becomes qualified for my state. To become my state means he becomes ready to be one with me, Paramatman. Jivatman is ready to become Paramatman. It has given up all its identification with the body-mind complex, the Kshatrajna, and now it has been able to detach itself to abide in the higher consciousness, supreme being. Then, in a bigger picture, he says, Prakritim Purusham Chaiva. Prakriti means nature, made of the three gunas. Purusham is the individual soul. Know both nature as also the individual soul to be verily without beginning. Both of these are without beginning. Know the modifications as also the gunas to be born of nature. So out of Prakriti, everything, Prakriti means nature is made of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. Everything has been projected by the power of the divine Maya. How? Refer to Manmathanath Ganguly's experience, how out of the pure consciousness, the whole world of various names and forms and gross world has been projected. But even in that projection, the pure consciousness is always there at a higher plane of existence. And then he says, regarding the source of the body and the organs, nature is said to be the cause. So the Kshetra, body and the organs. What is its source? Nature. Prakriti is the cause. And the soul is the cause so far as the enjoyership of happiness and sorrow is concerned. So in a human body, Purusha Sukha Dukkhana. In a person who is in this world, he experiences Sukha and Dukkha, enjoyership of happiness and sorrow. What is the source? the Purusha, the Jivan, the Ch13 is the cause. That means without that consciousness and conscious entity, there is no experience of Sukha and Dukkha. If a person's body is there, corpse is there, somebody cuts it, it doesn't experience any pain. But only if it is a living body, then you cut, then it experiences a pain. What is the cause of that experience of that pain? That is the consciousness when it is present in that body in this way. So here is basically trying to discriminate between what does the Purusha do? How do we know is there, and what is its contribution in this experience? So nature provides the body and the organs, and the cause of happiness and sorrow and misery and all those things, that is possible because of the presence of the Ch13 or the Atman there. Since Purusha is seated in Prakriti, so this is there. Seated means now they have got married. Purusha and Prakriti have become combined. They are in tango. Since the Purusha is seated in Prakriti nature, therefore it enjoys the qualities born of nature. So qualities are of nature, changes are happening, and this fellow, Purusha thinking, is enjoying it himself because somehow he has become identified. Contact with the gunas is the cause of birth of the Jiva Atman in good and evil wombs. So this identification with the body-mind complex, thinking that I am having a nice time, is very good, let me enjoy and maybe come back again. This is the cause of coming back into this world in various bodies. Sometimes you're born in a good place, sometimes in not such a good place. But what is the cause of repeated births, if you may ask? Why do we come back again? It is because we have got this entanglement and identification with the changes that are happening in the body-mind complex, and we are seated there enjoying them, experiencing them. So, but really, Upadrashtanumanta cha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara, the Supreme Being, he who is the witness, the permitter, the sustainer, the experiencer, the great Lord, and who is also spoken as the transcendental self, is the Supreme Person even in this body. So there is another entity who is nothing to do with this body-mind complex. What is he? He is the witness. He's watching everything. He's giving permission, let it go and happen. He supports it. He experiences it. He's the Maheshwara. And he's also the Paramatma, the transcendental self. That is the Supreme Person in this body. So this entity is the one that we are really interested in. And how do we do it? We have to practice, sort of look at this whole thing from his perspective. How do we see or experience not somebody bound, but as the witness of whatever is happening inside this body-mind complex? We'll come to the details later on. So, he who knows the self and nature, Purusham Prakriti, along with the gunas. So, some person who has exercised all that, digested this knowledge that is there, that has been described so far, and has been able to separate the self, the Atman, Purusha, and Prakriti, which is nature, along with the gunas, these modifications of the Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, which has created this body-mind complex and outside. What is the reward for such a person? Well, he is not born again, and will not be born again in whatever way he may live. It doesn't, so now he has been able to separate himself. That means he has understood himself that I'm the driver, body is the car. I'll drive it, but I can get out anytime that I want. Not that the body is, I'm hostage to this body, I'm trapped in it and its changes. And when it's everything is good, I'm happy. When it is not, then I'm not so happy. So no, he is an independent entity. Whether he drives the car or not, it doesn't matter. At any time, he can get out and leave for good because he has been able to free himself from its identification. That is the goal. So, how that is done? Well, Sri Krishna says different ways have been, people in the past have been able to achieve that knowledge. Some have done through meditation of the self with the help of Through meditation, some realize the self in the intellects with the help of internal organ with the mind. Others through Sankhya Yoga and through Karma Yoga. Various yogas are there through which they have been able to bring about this separation between the Purusha and the Prakriti. Again, others who do not know thus, who didn't have access to this knowledge and all those things, and didn't practice all this sadhana, no one was there to give them help, who do not know thus, and taking to contemplation after hearing from others. So they couldn't read, they didn't hear. Like you might have not read, but you are hearing from others. But you have you have the devotion to that truth and that knowledge that is there, and acting on that. For example, some spiritual teacher comes and says, okay, look, there's a great power in the name of the mantra. Repeat this, that will bring about a purification of the mind, by which you'll be able to discern the difference between the Jivatman and this body-mind complex. And that person has what is called Shraddha, in the words of the spiritual teacher, and he practices. He doesn't need to know all these things. What is necessary is practice. And if somebody has just that much, that simple faith, they too will be able to realize the truth. So he makes it very simple. So whatever object, moving or non-moving, charam, acharam, sthavaram, jangamam, the Sanskrit says, moving or non-moving, comes into being, know that to be from the association of the field and the knower of the field. That means anything in this creation is able to manifest by the combination of Purusha and Prakriti. The conscious being is necessary in the nature. When the two come together, that is how any being, any particular being, whether it's a plant or animal or God, they come because of this association of the two, entanglement between the two. Okay, we are coming close to our time. And so, then starts a series of teachings by which sadhana, how we can live and apply these teachings in our everyday life. Samam sarveshu bhuteshu tistantham parameshwaram vinashyastu vinashyantam yapashyati sapashyanti. He who sees the Supreme Lord as existing equally in all beings and as the imperishable among the perishable. Perishable is the body, imperishable is the consciousness of the Jivatman in the body. Where is it existing? In all beings. So this is the sadhana part of it. And this is how we apply that knowledge. So you go for a walk and you see so many people in the street and you say, oh, they're all different people. But if the idea comes, oh, they're all so many bodies, but there is only one being that is operating through all these bodies. That is the application of that knowledge there. And in this way, one has got so many opportunities to keep on seeing the application of this knowledge in our everyday so-called worldly life. It's the worldly life because we are seeing it in ignorance. You can turn it around and make it into a spiritual life. Shiva Jnane Jiva Seva. Shiva is dwelling in every Jiva. And don't just serve them as Jivas, but serve the Shiva in the Jiva with that knowledge. Shiva Jnane, knowing that Shiva is there in every Jiva, worship that Jiva. That becomes the type of spiritual practice that Swami Vivekananda prescribed to apply this knowledge. And one more we'll do, and then Samam Pashyan here Sarvatra Samavasthitam Ishwaram Na Hinasti Atmana Atmanam Tato Yati Paramgatim. Paramgatim, supreme goal. Yati, he attains to the supreme goal. How? This is the test. Since by seeing equally the divine God, who is present alike everywhere, what's the result? So if I'm seeing there, then it's not just simply knowledge, but it's an actionable knowledge. Okay, we do not do any injury to that person. Why? Because I'm present in that person also. Or my God, whom I worship in my temple, is present in them. That means by injuring somebody else, I am really injuring myself. So he doesn't want to do that because he's not thinking that like, hey, I hurt myself. But hurting others is I'm present as a self in all beings, basically that idea. He tries to put that into practice. And here, this is ahimsa. Na hinasti atmana atmana. He does not do any injury to himself in other beings, in other forms. And therefore, when his consciousness of awareness and identification has now expanded beyond that one body, and he feels he's present in all bodies, that is what is called self-realization. That is what is called Brahma-Jnana. That is a state of a Jivan Mukta. That is the highest truth. That means now we have become transcended all these names and forms, this little waviness, and say, I as the ocean am present in all the waves. I still see the waves, but I don't consider myself another wave. Really, I'm the ocean. The water of the ocean is equally present in all the waves. So this shift in that consciousness from this ignorance where we are identified with just one body to that universal consciousness, which is the foundation of all the bodies, and then having that perspective, and then dealing with all those people and all these created beings. It's not only human beings, now it's plants, animals, everywhere I'm present. And you see now all these great realized souls, when they approach mankind, and that wonderful compassion, a wonderful sacrifice, they're ready to sacrifice that one body for the whole good of the whole. Any illness insignificant, like Buddha was ready to sacrifice his body for lamb or goat or something. That is the source of that wonderful compassion and universal love that you see in a realized soul, because out of the experience, it's not an intellectual thing, and it's not just prescriptive. It's nice to be kind, and it is their own experience that dwell in all beings, and all beings dwell in them. That is the highest realization, and that is possible in a human being. That is what is the goal of spiritual sadhana in our Vedanta, in Hinduism. And there's no rest to this coming and going until we achieve that. I was hoping that we will be able to run through this, all of the verses in this one session, but no, we didn't. So a quick recap. Couple of verses in the beginning are talking about the Kshetra, the field, made out of body, mind complex, and the karmendriyas, jnanendriyas, and all those things. And those emotions, some non-material, like ichha, dvesha, sukha, dukkha, and all that. Then Sri Krishna takes us through a series of spiritual disciplines or qualities that have to be cultivated by a spiritual seeker, which becomes the means to the realization of the supreme Kshetrajnas, and he classifies them as jnana. Other than that, whatever is not there or anything that is contrary to that, he calls as ajnana. Then he takes us through a series of 5-7 verses, which describes in detail the various qualities of the Purusha. And then he begins to say, okay, this whole creation, whatever is there, really is a combination of the Purusha and Prakriti. And the goal is to separate the two. How it is done, some have done through meditation, through Sankhya Yoga, Karma Yoga, others by simply listening and having the devotion to the Supreme Truth have there, come there. Where is that being? That's Purusha, Paramatman. Now in this last 3-4 verses we talked about, it is there everywhere in all things. And in the last 1 or 2 verses here, how do we go about putting this into practice? Well, see the divine in everything, but seeing it with the spiritual eye, just not seeing with the physical eye. Otherwise you just see the name and form, but seeing with the spiritual eye that in and through us, in everyone is that same consciousness. Close your eyes and meditate on him in your own heart. Open your eyes and behold him in everything, and not just have it intellectually. See whether your actions tally with your inner thoughts. It's all right to say God dwells in the heart, in my heart, but then do you behave like that with others? If not, then it is only some idea there. It has not really expressed itself. So a seeker, this is not so easy. It's a real hard work. But every time you put into practice, you are applying this knowledge of Vedanta. we'll stop here today, and we'll continue to the end of this chapter in the next Thursday's class. I would like you to go through them, and you'll find that try to make a summary of these 5 or some key ideas that are there. What are the themes, the main subject ideas that are covered in this particular chapter, and then you'll have a sort of overall summary type of thing, and then that's a skeleton, and then we'll go back inside and fill in the details and see how we can make this idea alive for our spiritual practice. So we have come to the end of today's session, and let's finish with our prayer. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanastu.